Central Coast News right now. This is breaking news.
A building that was under construction near AT&T Park in San Francisco has gone up in flames tonight. Hello, I'm John K. Brent. Let's get you to a live picture now of the flame from our affiliates chopper in San Francisco. That is an entire city block on fire right now. It's a 4-alarm fire in the Mission Bay neighborhood. Now, according to fire crews, the fire is moving down the block. Just moments ago, that large portion that you see there in the upper left-hand corner of your screen actually collapsed. Now, since the building is under construction, there weren't any sprinkler systems installed, we're told, which makes the fire even harder to fight. Now, there's no reports of any injuries at this particular time. There are more than 100 firefighters on scene battling this fire, but what can you do when it's out of control like this? And they're saying it's moving up the block as we speak. We're going to stay on this story for you throughout the newscast to give you the very latest on this breaking fire in San Francisco. Meantime, the Balboa Park Station in San Francisco is closed and BART trains are experiencing major delays after a person fell underneath the train and was killed. It happened around 4:30 this afternoon. No word yet on the identity of the individual. And you can sign up for breaking news alerts by going to our website, KIONrightnow.com. Click email at the top of the homepage. And coming back to the Central Coast, a special meeting is underway right now in King City to discuss 6 King City police officers arrested and charged just 3 weeks ago. The City Council wants to help the community come together. Central Coast News reporter Marissa Schwartz is live in King City where she's been sitting in on the meeting. So Marissa, what have you learned tonight?
Well, John, just a few minutes ago, King City residents poured into council chambers here at City Hall to share their concerns and possibly frustrations surrounding the controversy with the King City Police Department. Earlier, city leaders spoke about the plan to move forward to restore integrity to the department. The city has hired interim Police Chief Dennis Hegwood. Hegwood says it's his job to help in the short term as the department starts a nationwide search for a permanent police chief. Hegwood says the Monterey County Sheriff's Department and CHP will continue their patrols in King City to make up for those officers who are currently on leave. Now, Hegwood also says some professional standards officers will be brought in to perform some internal audits, though he was a little bit vague as to what will be done with those audits. And though he says that those professional standards officers will be used to help with patrols in the city. Live in King City, Marissa Schwartz, your Central Coast News.
Thank you, Marissa. And one of the things on the agenda for tonight's meeting, changing the city's towing policy. Now, the proposed policy would give police officers the discretion to let someone who is pulled over without a license call another licensed driver to drive their car home instead of having it towed.
Would rather give our police department at their discretion to be able to say, park your car, have someone come that has a valid driver's license to drive the car back home, and instead of impounding the vehicle.
Mayor Cullen says impounding vehicles is hurting the people who are the backbone of the community, so he hopes this policy change will be approved. And we want to get you caught up tonight on the latest on the 6 King City officers who face criminal charges. They're expected back in court next week. No plea yet from Acting Chief Bruce Miller, charged with accepting a bribe. Officer Mario Motusinho pleaded not guilty to charges of embezzlement. No plea from Officer Jaime Andrade on charges of possessing an assault weapon. It's a not guilty plea for former Chief of Police Nick Baldivias, who faces embezzlement charges, and no plea from Sergeant Bobby Carrillo on conspiracy and bribery charges. And finally, Officer Mark Baker pleaded not guilty to assault. Law enforcement agencies have seen cuts across their departments up and down the Central Coast, but today Santa Cruz County Sheriff told supervisors he wants to get his department back on the road to recovery. Central Coast News reporter Cassandra Arsenault live in the Content Center with more on filling empty positions. Cassie?
Well, John, Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department 5 years ago had to freeze 18 of their positions. Now, Sheriff Phil Wowek said the department is now seeing the effects of those cuts on the community. He said there are longer response times to calls and an uptick in crime numbers in Santa Cruz County. Since 2009, 17 deputy positions and 1 sergeant position has been vacant. But in June, Sheriff Wowek will make the bare minimum request to fill some of those positions. He's going to request 3 criminalist positions. He'll take those deputies out of the crime lab and put them back on patrol. And he'll request another 4 deputy positions to be filled. Now, that will only fill 7 out of the 17 deputy positions that they have vacant right now. Ideally, he'd like to fill 14 of those 17 positions, but he'll only propose 7 at this time. In the Content Center, I'm Cassandra Arsenal, your Central Coast News.
Thank you, Cassie. A viewer reached out to us on our Facebook page wanting to know if the water in Castroville is contaminated. A boil notice went out to about 300 mobile homes at the Monte del Lago yesterday. And here is that boil notice. It says the water needs to be boiled before you use it for drinking or cooking. PG&E had issues that caused a brownout yesterday, and that caused the water pumps at Monte del Lago to be shut off. When that happens, the water management company is required by law to notify California Department of Public Health and send a boil water notice. The pumps are now back up and running, but the water still needs to be tested before the boil warning for Monte del Lago can be lifted. And if you're driving Highway 1 near Carmel, be prepared to stop. All week, Caltrans will be removing pine trees along the busy road that were in danger of falling after heavy rains. But that's causing a traffic nightmare. Reporter Ricardo Navarro joins us live from the newsroom. So, Ricardo, you sat through it today. What was that like?
John, it was pretty bad. This is what they're working on right here. And I checked it out this afternoon, but the morning commute is probably even worse. Deanna Edwards lives just off Highway 1, and this week a lot of stop-and-go traffic thanks to tree removal.
My husband goes back and forth to Los Angeles every other week, and sometimes he feels that they shouldn't be doing this in the mid parts of the day because it does kind of tie things up for people. But
the project and the traffic will be here all week. Caltrans is removing diseased pine trees like this one along Highway 1 near Pacific Grove and Carmel. There are a total of 5 tree removal projects.
I think it's a good thing. I know it is for people who are commuting. It's probably a bit bothersome.
But how bothersome exactly? So I'm about a half a mile away from where the actual tree trimming is happening. I'm going to see how long it actually takes me to get through traffic. It's about 1 o'clock right now. It didn't take me long to hit it, and I wasn't even on Highway 1 yet. Today's project was northbound, but look what it did to traffic going southbound. CHP closed off one lane in both directions to be safe, so heads up, traffic delays are expected tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. northbound just past the Holman Highway exit. On Thursday, the delay will be on the off-ramp going south on Highway 1 and westbound towards Chomp. And while you should prepare to face the brake lights and the headache, Edwards has a tip.
To me, when you have to stop here in the traffic, you just take time to look at the scenery.
CHP officers are working in that directing traffic, which may help somewhat. The tree removal projects and the traffic jams that go along with them are likely to continue through at least Thursday. By the way, Caltrans warns of 25-minute delays, and that's pretty much how long it took me today. In the newsroom, Ricardo Navarro, your Central Coast News.
All right, take along your patience. Thank you, Ricardo. State Senator Anthony Cannella announced today he's suspending a request for an audit into the Employment Development Department, or EDD. Cannella wanted to review how well the department is clearing backlogs and processing insurance claims, see how quickly recommendations would be implemented, and whether they were meeting federal performance standards. Now, in a statement sent to us by a senator's office, we were told that the request for the audit is on hold because, quote, if he were to proceed with the audit at this time, it would take the resources that the EDD currently is using to work on the problem and to redirect them to filling his audit requests. So the senator says if progress is not made, they'll take that audit back up. Self-driving cars, what to do? The Department of Motor Vehicles held a workshop to discuss safety standards for these self-driving cars, and they want input on how best to handle these cars on the road. Consumer watchdog groups are concerned that the self-driving cars violate people's privacy by gathering too much information. Another question raised is whether a person will have to be in the driver's seat while the autonomous vehicle is driving.
Different companies have different timetables, and of course they're very secretive about when they will be rolling them out. But as far as we're concerned, we need to have the regulations in place at the end of this year.
Prototype testing regulations are finished, and manufacturers can test drive cars on roadways once the required $5 million for insurance is paid. $29 million, that's how much CVS Caremark Corporation might have to pay in fines for allegedly losing track of prescription painkillers. The drugs went unaccounted for from 4 California stores. Authorities say thousands of the pills may have been sold on the black market. And today marks the 3rd anniversary of a deadly 9.0 earthquake that triggered the massive tsunami in northern Japan. That disaster killed nearly 16,000 people, crashed into the Fukushima nuclear power plant, setting off an unprecedented nuclear crisis. 3 reactors melted down. Radiation spread widely across northeastern towns, forcing 150,000 people to leave their homes. Now, studies are being done here in California to see if radiation could have reached our shores. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services wants to remind members of the active military, reserve, and all veterans there is help available if your immediate family is undocumented. In November, the federal government established the official guideline on how to handle cases where military personnel have undocumented family members. Now, husbands, wives, parents, and children of military men and women can request legal residency in the United States, but some experts say to be careful when applying for the new program.
If a non-citizen tried to enter the United States using a fraudulent document, if the non-citizen committed a crime, you could be placed in removal proceedings.
The new policy does not offer a path to citizenship and is available to reserves and veterans. It's a story that started out as a frantic Facebook post, but it has a happy ending. A woman in Hollister reached out on her Hollister Neighborhood Watch page believing her tortoise was stolen from her backyard last week. Well, the tortoise's name is Morala, and he's apparently very smart. He even knows his name, and everyone has been keeping their eye out for him. But this afternoon, when Angela went to check her mail, there was Morala walking up the street. Angela says she'll now be buying a lock for the gate, and we're glad that Morala is back home and eating broccoli, as you can see. All right, Norm's forecast coming up in 2 minutes. Plus, later in the broadcast, a spike in heroin-related deaths has health managers calling for an urgent public health crisis. And a company posing as Verizon is dialing in on people's wallets. It's the latest scam you need to know about.
This is Central Coast News, now in high definition.